I'm going to call the meeting to order. We have a minute taker, you said, Bill?
Yeah, they may be late, but they'll use the video as well, but we've got it covered.
Okay, so we're going to call the meeting order at 7:01. I'm going to ask that we skip over new business and go to Mark and Dan had made a request. I don't know if they both made the request or just Mark about negotiations on health insurance. And there's two representatives, school board representatives, Mark or Dan. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so the VSBA gets to appoint two people to the statewide healthcare negotiating committee. And we would like to just open that up. If there's anybody here who has some familiarity with negotiations, with healthcare, and has some interest in that, then we would submit their name, or you could submit your own name to the Vermont School Boards Association. They'd love to have you, and they will pick two from the people who put their names forward. But I gotta say, I think they'd be delighted to see some participation in this. So if you're at all interested, you could get in touch with either Mark Schauber or myself, or write straight to Sue Siglowski at VSBA and find out more of the details.
Mark, go ahead. Sorry.
It's okay. I just want to clarify. I don't know. I honestly don't remember how many positions there are on the negotiating commission. They're the ones that negotiate with or against the NEA, in essence. The two positions that are open are for alternate positions, though. The commission currently is full. We always have two alternates. In the past couple of months, we've had a couple people retire. So the alternates were moved up. So now we've got two openings for alternates. But we really need some good people on there because, well, I don't really care that this is being recorded. The NEA has been kicking our ass for the last two rounds. So if anybody has any interest, talk to Dan or I.
So does anybody from the VSBA now serve?
So the members of the commission usually are not members of the VSBA. I think there happens to be one VSBA board member currently that is on the negotiating commission, but it is not it's not a requirement by any stretch. You don't even have to be a school board member. It's anybody. You have to have some familiarity with healthcare, preferably insurance, and with negotiating. Those are really the only requirements.
Okay, thank you, Mark and Dan. Are there any questions for them? Okay. Bill, I'm having trouble trying to watch the screen and pull up the agenda. Can you give us the next agenda item, please?
Sure. So you can either go to incoming superintendent idea to share, which is under new business, or you can hop to policy. Your call.
Well, I think I saw Bob there. I see that little yay, the Red Sox one on his right shoulder. Yeah, that one. I got that one in my office too. So if everybody's okay, let's move over on that positive note that the Red Sox won. Let's go to Bob, and Bob would like to make a proposal. I know he has some stuff to share, and I see Jen is here to share with him, and our chief financial officer couldn't make it, but I know Bob has talked to her. So why don't we let him and Jen do their presentation, and then we'll do questions afterwards, okay?
Thanks, Rich. Thank you, everybody. And sorry I was a couple minutes late here. I had a little computer setup issue. I had to move from the basement up here because it was way too cold down the basement. So it took me a minute to get settled. Yeah, I mean, a lot of you have heard sort of the basis for this before, but I'll give you the short version, which I think you guys have, should have a handout, a new updated one from Bill and Rich today. So over the last 6.5 years, as Bill and Jen have led the district, the SU, through a lot of different things, they have really created an incredibly strong foundation from which to continue building. And it's my hope as the new superintendent coming in to really not only continue to build on the work that they've done, but to try to accelerate the rate of that growth. COVID has really kind of, kicked us in the teeth a little bit as far as how we've been so reactive to, so many things, whether it's the logistical stuff of actually during COVID and the coming back to school after, or whether it's the behavioral stuff that we've been dealing with in school since. But it's really kind of knocked us for a loop for the last several years. So to get us back on track and then try to recoup some of that momentum that we had and the growth that we had, really, really thinking that this proposal that we have for you today, what I have for you today, is will help us move in that direction. And so the gist of it is that since the time that Bill created Jen's position and hired Jen to take that position, there's been a significant number of additional things that have come both from the state and from within our leadership team and based on needs in the schools that has precipitated adding things to Jen's plate. And one of the things that has done over the years is it's my belief, and you can talk to Jen a little bit about this as well, but that by the more stuff that you have on a plate, the less rapid with which you're going to be able to respond to those things. And I liken it to the idea of a restaurant. If you go into a restaurant, and of course we've all been in one recently when they're understaffed, and if you get there at the right time, your service will be pretty good, and you can kind of get your meal and get your dessert and get your check and kind of move on. But as things get busier, we sit and we wait and we wonder if the waiter's coming back to our table. We wonder, by the time our water glasses are empty, we don't have any butter for our rolls, or drink needs refilling, and the one or two servers that are really maintaining the same and growing number of tables aren't able to give us the same attention that they might give us if there were fewer things. And so using that analogy, thinking about how can we take some things off of Jen's plate, how can we shift some things around so that we can accelerate that growth? And you factor into that as well that we have the potential for at least 3 new principals in the SU this coming year, with my replacement at Leland and Gray, with one at Marlboro as Wayne departs, and we don't know in Townsend we have a posting coming up, and a search will be going on, and a process to hire a new person there as well. So knowing all of those things are happening with new administrators coming in, just thinking about what supports may be needed for those folks. So the document, I don't know, I guess I could try to share it and see if this will work at all. And I'm going to try to enlarge this a little bit as well. So the first 2 paragraphs here, I basically have tried to just outline. This is the idea that there's a lot going on. There's a lot on our plate. We really want to accelerate the growth. There's a great foundation, but there is a need to really do some pushing. And so what I am proposing is that we shift Jen's position currently to from the director of curriculum instruction to an assistant superintendent position. A lot of that is title, but as you can see, there's some more supervision in there as well, and some coaching and PD for principals. You'll notice the bold things that are on here are things that weren't originally on Jen's job description. These are things that have been added over the years with new initiatives that we've had or new demands from the state. And so, as you can see, we want to take some of those things off her plate. And you can, as we shift down to the second position, this is the new ask. This is the curriculum coordinator / AST lead instructional coach. And this person would take on many of those things that we have been doing, that Jen has been doing, and accelerate the growth there as well. But really taking the position and dividing it into 2 allows us to really focus with fidelity on the things that need to get done, and also ramp up and do some new additional things as well. And then again, like I said, with the new principals coming into the SU, the need to have that support there as well. One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about, as having been here as a principal with Bill, Jen and I have worked through a lot of things together in my role as principal and hers as curriculum director. And Bill and I have met on a regular basis as well to talk about different logistical things at the school. Taking that model and kind of expanding that, just to give you an example, if Jen has the time and the ability to really focus on instruction with the principals, to be able to go into the buildings, be able to do walkthroughs with the principals, to be able to calibrate our supervision and evaluation observations and walkthroughs, so that the principals are really all on the same page, could be incredibly powerful for improving instruction, which of course is going to result in better student outcomes, which is obviously the whole reason that we're here. And so if she's able to do that and focus with the principals on that in her weekly rounds with them, when I come in, I'm able to focus more on logistical management type stuff, staffing concerns, and other things of that management nature. And she's able to really get close with the instructional side. So the idea is, as you can see, all these bold things that have been added, you can see how the job that was originally created for one person to complete is really pretty difficult, and it's become overwhelming. And you can see how there's been some new things that we feel like we can even push further. One example is Jen's current role as the HHB and Title IX oversight person. So that really, she provides us some technical assistance when we have a tough case in the buildings, but to have her to really be able to go in and review cases and sit with principals and help them understand the process, and to ensure that our records are accurate, so that if we ever have a problem that makes it to the Human Rights Commission at the state level, or an issue at the federal level as well, with the Office of Civil Rights, that she would be able to ensure that our records were more accurately kept. Obviously, with the support she'd be giving the principals in the meantime, the hope is that we would never get to that level with that increased level of support. Right now, she's not able to do that. She just does not have the capacity on her day-to-day operations to be able to do that level of work. So that's an example. I mean, there's lots of them. And again, she can talk more about this. And before we get into the logistics of the positions, and you have some questions for her, maybe even some of what these abbreviations might even stand for, I want to sort of get to the financial element of this, because I know, as I've said to the executive committee, you guys have already approved your budget. It's already attached to the assessments of the districts. And so, asking at this point is a challenge, obviously, because your budget's already set. However, in talking with Lori and Bill, and they both have been supportive of this concept, you can see for this coming year, FY24, we would basically access some from fund balance. And you can see that there is some unspent ARP ESSER money as well, 50K. So the belief, what Lori's assessment is, this is all Lori's work that you're looking at right now, that the super's budget would be an increase of 50K, which would be offset by the fund balance. And it's really just a shift from the MTSS budget. And this has to do with the way that Jen's position is currently funded and the way that the new 2 positions could be funded, and how it's a little bit different. And so some of that, again, will be offset by the ARP ESSER funds, and the rest will be offset by fund balance for next year. In year 2, which is about as far out as we really want to go at this point, because I know it's asking for a commitment. And again, we can reassess in the fall before we build a new budget. But just to play it out for you, in FY25, because there's a shift from Jen's 3.3 FTE of Jen's position from MTS to the super's budget, because her job expectations would be changing, duties would be changing, so some of it would not be able to be grant funded. That would, as you can see, would be a loss. That loss of revenue of 65K is a result of that grant funding not covering those parts of the job. You can see down below what she makes those assessments to be based on. She believes that that there would be, within the super's budget, an increase of roughly 92,000 overall, and that includes shifting half of her salary and benefit package into that super's budget instead of what it is right now, and which is 0.2. And then you can see that there's a an increase. That's a 9.9% increase. And then you can see for the MTSS budget, that amount we don't know the exact numbers on, but she estimates somewhere in the 22 to 85 range, depending on how we fill one of the vacant AST positions and where they fall. And so there's a variance there as well for FY25. So that's a lot of information, but I wanted you to get the sense of sort of the why I feel that it's really important that we do this now, and why right now is the right time to do it based on the incoming new principals and our ability to kind of accelerate whatever growth we can continue to work from. And because of the fund balance, obviously being able to enter it without any real impact coming into FY24, and then having a what I believe is a pretty small impact for the amount of impact that we're going to have on learning for kids. I don't know if Bill shared with you guys or not, but there were several support documents that several of the principals wrote, one from West River, actually two from West River, one from River Valleys, to support the initiative as well, just to show where their thinking was. So some of those, some of your districts are represented, some are not, obviously, but that's kind of where we're at. And so I would encourage you guys to ask Jen questions, ask me questions. As you think about this, our hope would be to slide Jen into one, and then to post the other position with your approval, and search for someone to fill that second part, which is more of the coaching of the AST team, and working with the common assessments and the data tool, induction for new teachers, mentoring program, all that kind of stuff. So, and all the PD work for setting up the PD for teachers. So where are the questions?
Bob, I didn't really introduce this enough, and I'm just, if you folks don't mind, give me 1 second. You know, I went through all the interviews with Bob, and I was a spectator, and Bob had made a lot of comments. He had a lot of ideas and thoughts and things he would like to see. So after he was hired, I asked him if he wanted to go to lunch, and I just said, you know, you had a bunch of thoughts, but you know, you didn't have a lot of time to expand on them. And you know, what were your ideas? And he expressed this idea. And I said to him, well, you know, the budgets have been set and it may be a little difficult. And he thought it through and said he felt it was important enough that he'd like to bring it forward. So I did bring it up to the executive committee. So the executive committee, which we meet now just monthly, we used to meet weekly, which includes the officers, myself, Al, and Emily, and then the board chairs of all the boards, Allison, Doug. Some of us serve double duty. So we did talk about it. We had a lot of questions for Bob, and it was a good, oh, there's Al. Thank you, Al. So we did have a bunch of questions for Bob, and he did bring some more information to us. So the executive committee did not vote on this, or did not say that, I don't believe we went one way or the other, but we would support Bob to bring it forward. And the important, one of the things that we discussed was it would be important to get it out fairly early if we were going to move that position forward. You can't advertise this in June or May or June, because there's all the good candidates have already been snapped up. And I did ask Bill Antone if he was what position he was applying for, and he said not here. So you know, who knows who we're going to get. So I do, and the last thing is to remember, we're only voting on this for 1 year. Bob presented a 2-year plan, but if you remember when we hired the facilities transportation manager, we hired him actually not even for a full year. And we told him he had to hit the ground running because his position was going to be discussed in less than a year. So, and that seemed to have been a good position. Remember, we've had 2 people serve in that already too. And I hate talking about people. I'd rather talk about positions. So Dan, I'm going to turn the floor over to you first, and then we'll go to any other questions.
Thanks, Rick. I am going to make a motion that we do not fund this position, but I mostly make that motion so we can have the discussion. So that I'm going to make that motion and see where it goes.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So if we vote no to funding the position, does that mean we voted to fund it?
my motion is that we not fund the position.
Okay. Doug, go ahead.
Thanks, Rich.
Yeah, I guess I didn't expect to be first to speak. I thought all the hands
Oh,
would go
well,
up.
I have a motion. I thought you were going to second a motion.
Oh, yeah, I'll second it. The hand, that could be that.
Okay, so then I got to go back to Dan. I'll let him speak first and you
Okay.
can speak second.
That's
Yeah,
better.
yeah, and thanks, Rich. And just to clarify, I am a huge supporter of this supervisory union. I think that we have done collectively with the leadership that we have a wonderful job, exemplary job. My reasons for making the motion are twofold. One, we spend a gob of money here in this SU. If you folks are watching what's happening around the state, VT Digger had a thing recently. You know, they mentioned Marlboro first, then they mentioned Townsend, Jamaica, I've forgotten the other ones, as among the highest spending districts in the entire state. And I'm proud of that. We support the schools that we have, but I'm just leery of adding more expense to that. My second thought is this is money going into administrative levels, and I think we every one of us are looking at our own individual schools and thinking, you know, if we had money, we'd spend it here. We'd do something that would, you know, directly be of benefit to the kids in the schools. So that's kind of, I find myself feeling that it's not the most cost-effective thing to add administrative positions as opposed to direct teaching. And just thirdly, I appreciate that we could have this position for a year without spending a lot of money because we have fund balance, but I think, let's be realistic, that seldom happens, and I wouldn't expect it to in this position either. We're going to get somebody, and it's really tricky to tell someone that they've gotten a poor report and that you're going to have to can them after they've been here a year. So those are my reasons for thanks, Rich, for clarifying the motion that we not fund this position.
Doug, you go ahead and comment. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, I have some comments, I guess, in support of the motion to not fund, but I think, Rich, you stated one of them right off the bat, which was that our budget's pretty much set. A lot of what we're doing with surplus funds, I know this doesn't come from it, but it will eventually. I mean, you're basically robbing Peter to pay Paul in that regard. But, you know, we are looking at a real uptick in spending based on Act 173, right? And we're all preparing for that shift to start happening, which will be happening in addition to sort of the COVID money going away. And we still have a lot of COVID problems in our schools. So again, I think an executive level position isn't where our sight should be. But then also I want to look back to maybe like 3 meetings ago where we were an SU that was investing in equity. And Rich, you talked a lot about this. You were a part of that group. We do it in Marlboro. We're investing there as well. You know, the WCSU, I look on their website and they have an entire program developed already for justice, equity, and diversity. And, you know, our equity is spread out. Clearly, we don't have as many students as that SU, but I still feel like we should be doing more. And so we funded that position and agreed to fund it. And I feel like it's kind of fallen to the wayside. And I'd like to see that brought back. And so that's why I feel like if we're going to support something new, that's what we agreed to support already. And then in addition to that, part of that bottom portion where you take away, I guess, from Jen's position and move down, I think that the principals are the spearheads for the teachers and their curriculum development. They're in the school, they know what their teachers need, their teachers are talking to them directly. And I feel like if we're going to spend money, let's just throw it at the teachers for the professional development they need. And I'm not saying that, you know, next year we could look at a budget and include something like this, but I just feel like right now it doesn't seem like it's the time. So
Doug, just to address the equity, even though it's not the topic, that is still moving forward. There's a group of people that was actually led by Bob, and there's a bunch of the people on the Jedi team that are working to develop a job description or how they want to do it. And we actually had an all-day retreat workshop, a program with the Jedi team at Leland and Gray where a lot of that was discussed. So that hasn't fallen by the wayside. They're just getting, putting something together and what it's going to look like. So that definitely has not gone away. Don't be concerned on that.
Well, thanks for clarifying that, Rich.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead. Anybody else? I see Mark, no, I thought somebody just unmuted themselves. Nobody else wants to comment.
I hadn't, but I do have a couple of quick comments.
And then Russ, I'll get to you after Mark, okay? Go ahead, Mark.
So my first one is I really am worried about the federal funds COVID cliff, whatever one might want to call it. We've got dropping CLAs in the SU, I think all of our towns, and a lot of money is going to be coming off of our books in the very near future. I also wonder whether if we are looking to invest more money, whether it should be going into on the ground counselor positions that directly interact with our students versus administration at this point. I'm not against the idea. I just think that the timing of putting additional money into administration right now probably isn't the smartest use of our funds.
Thank you, Mark. Russ and then Ken.
I think the positions as they're described could bring great benefits to some teachers in some schools. I think that having a coach be able to observe a teacher's behavior in a classroom and their teaching technique can add to direct improvement in instruction and improvement in the education of the children. I know in previous school districts that I've been involved in, there were teams of people who would go out to different schools and evaluate individual teachers in the way in which they taught and could offer constructive criticism to them and actually improve the net results for the children. So I think it's a good way to increase the effectiveness of the teachers in the classroom by giving them another point of view or another view on how they can teach and instruct.
Thank you, Russ. Ken, and then I don't have anybody else.
Okay, all I have to say is I don't see how we could even justify, with the number of students we have in the district, having another administrative position open up. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ken. Drew, go ahead. Jen and Bob, I'm going to hold on you guys because I'll let the board go and then I'll let you guys speak.
So my first, I guess, concern is the timeliness of this proposal and when we receive the information is very concerning to me. The second piece I'd like to add is the last time I sat down and did math, we're spending 40% of our education dollars on non-educators. We have a lot of administration. And I'm sitting here with a junior at Leland and Gray that has no classes left to take. At this point, 2 of his 4 blocks are having to be done in a way that is not traditional because there's no classes for him to take. If we're going to spend additional dollars, it needs to be direct education to our students, bringing our administrative costs from 40% of our education dollars to 42 or 45% of our education dollars to me is it's just ridiculous to even consider. And I would also point out that this was never warned as a monetary line item, so I don't believe we can actually vote on it to approve it anyway.
Okay, thank you, Drew. Anybody else?
Rich, can I speak? It's Dana.
Dana, are you a board member?
Yeah. I'm in West River Valley.
Okay, I just don't have you on the list. They only give me the voting members, but we've always allowed.
I'm not a
board
voting
members.
member. I'm just
No,
one of the
I know
other-
we've always allowed them. I just wasn't sure who you were, sir. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I just wanted to speak that, we struggled in West River to come up with a budget that was good for the taxpayers, but we still added funds to improve our education. And I agree with the others as far as adding to the administration. It might be nice, but we're not that rich of a district to be able to do that. Not at this time, considering the CLAs went down and our taxes are going to go up. The people are going to gripe. So I would not be in favor of this.
Okay, thank you. Is everybody okay if Bob and Jen speak? Okay, Jen, we're gonna let you, because you haven't said anything yet, and then we'll get to you, Bob. Is that okay?
Sure. So, thanks. I just wanted to clarify just a few things as I was listening to the conversation, and I understand the budgetary pieces, and it's going to be what it's going to be. I just think, like, I heard some things about like my position and the work, and off Jen's plate and overwhelmed. I was like, that's not what this is about to me. When Bob talked to me about this was really about growth, and that Bill and I have worked so hard together to build a foundation and have done these things, I think, done really well. Like when I talk to colleagues and friends and SUs around us, like WCSU, we're being watched because we're doing great things. And so like, I'm really proud of that. And I think even things like the academic support, it's not even things. The academic support team, we're the only district, the only SU that does it like that. And because of it, we're able to serve so many more students. We provide instructional coaching for teachers, and our PD, like proposed for next year, is all staff and teacher led. Like we are getting deep into our pedagogy and the content we're able to deliver to kids. And I'm really proud of that. And I'm not overwhelmed. I mean, like, admittedly, I do not have a good work-life balance. And I have left a couple of weeks of vacation on the calendar for 7+ years. And I recognize that. And so, like, Bill and I have had many conversations about this, that as things came up, I'm like, I raise my hand. I'm like, yes, we have to do that. Like, I think about the HHB work that I've done that is Untitled IX work. Like, there's more that I would like to do as far as coaching and consulting, but I look at some of our area districts around us and they don't have someone doing that. And I see some of the things in the paper when you don't have someone watching that, right? So there's pieces like that I don't feel like I could turn my head and say, nope, it's not curriculum. So over the last 6 years, I've really just kept taking things on, and I have to start saying no, thank you. And so I hear, because I just cannot do the things that are on my plate well enough to my level if more is added. So like, I hear about the equity coordinator position, like it speaks to my heart. Like, I want that in our district. I want that program to be successful. Who's going to watch that? Who's going to supervise that? Who's going to help that program take place? It's going to fall on my plate. So absolutely something has to come off. You know, as Bob talks to me about his vision and his mission for our SU and the growth he wants to make, and it's over leadership and instructional coaching, which, man, I am right there with him. Like, our leadership and our administrators being able to provide effective feedback to teachers is what our next step has to be. And there's not enough time in the calendar for me to be able to do that well to the degree that I want to do it. And it's not about me being overwhelmed or not working hard. Trust me, those things, I'm a worker, you know, and Bill and I talk about this a lot. There just can't be more. We can't make it to the next level, I don't believe, without more support. So as I listen to everyone, it's like, I absolutely hear you about the money and the funding and like a 1-year position and all of those things. And I hear you. I just think about, like, and Bob had to convince me, I'll tell you, because I'm like a Yankee, you know, like, I'm like, let's do this thing. It's about working with kids. I just don't know how else we can keep going forward. And then Bill and I had a conversation today that had nothing to do with this conversation, but was about the more that's coming from the state, and who's going to do that. And I'm not sure who can. It's not Stephanie, you know, it's not Lori, you know, I don't know that the superintendent can do it all. So that's just why I want to share. And I'm happy to, like, more than happy to talk about anything on this list or what thoughts are for next year or what's going on right now. But I just wanted to express my my perspective on why this is coming to you at this point. So that's all.
Thank you, Jen. Go ahead, Bob.
Sure, thanks. I agree with Jen. I hear the financial piece and the CLA, like I hear and I get it. I guess one thing I want to just counter is that spending money on administration somehow doesn't help kids directly, and that we should put money in, in PD for teachers or counselors or other things that were mentioned. I guess I want to counter that for a little bit. Like, I've been a principal for 14 years, and while I'm not in the classroom, every single thing that I do is about kids. And so whether it's about, building issues, which have to be talked about and discussed to create an environment for kids to be educated within, or if it's about professional development program that we're talking about at Leland and Gray, it's about the project-based learning and implementing that system and getting the PD the teachers need, and then coming up with bus routes so that we can have teacher time in the morning to plan for it. And like all of the logistical stuff that's the management side, not just the instructional leadership, is all about kids. And so I just want to temper the argument that money into administration doesn't help kids. It absolutely helps kids. It provides the support that this position would provide, the support that administrators would need to do their jobs more effectively. And when they do their jobs more effectively, the teachers do their jobs more effectively. And that's 100% about the front lines and kids. And so I just wanted to counter that a little bit and just talk about that, because as we continue to work, as I continue to work with you guys after July 1, I mean, a lot of you don't know me that well right now, but I think what you're going to discover, I hope it was what you're going to discover through our work together, is that everything that I will argue about and fight for is always going to be what's in the best interest of kids, all kids. And so that I just want to make sure people understood that's where I was coming from. And I'll give you a quick example. I had an opportunity when I was at Springfield High School with ERA money back in those days to add, and we identified a need to add a teacher to do some reading intervention. And at the high school level, we had some kids who needed reading intervention. And so our scores just weren't very good. And so we brought in a gentleman to interview for the position. And we were talking to him about what our needs were. We showed him the data. We were talking about the plan, and this was grant money, and it was limited, and so on and so forth. And he made an argument to us in the interview that we were hiring the wrong job. His argument to us was, don't spend this money on a teacher to do direct services to kids. Use this money to hire an instructional coach to work with teachers. And that way you're spreading that money across the entire teaching staff, and you're impacting significantly more kids. That conversation led to a significant shift in how we did things at Springfield High School. And it led to incredible growth in our not only in our like test scores and those measurable results, but in culture and climate at the building. And it increased our graduation rate by 20 percentage points. And that's, it was with the team that we had there, that was the coattails on which that I was principal of the year, because of the growth that Springfield had through that one conversation. So I just want to temper the idea like dumping money in admin is just like this top heavy thing. There's an impact for kids. And this isn't Reaganomics. This is a direct impact on supporting administrators who then support teachers who make kids learning better. So I just want to temper that a little bit as well. Thank you.
Okay. Doug had his hand up and now it's gone. Are you good, Doug?
Yeah, but it wasn't really relative to what Bob was saying. I was just going to speak to another comment that was made earlier. And it's related to, I guess, the teachers being observed. So my understanding, and as it was told to me, probably when I started as a board member, is that the principal of every school is the lead instructor, is the curriculum lead. And that was relayed to me by Bill at the time when we were hiring. And it was also sort of hinted at through my prior principal as well, outside of Wayne. And I feel like those observations are happening in our school. I feel confident of the relationship between the principal and the teacher to get that feedback. So I just want, that to be clear. I think that that's sort of the structure that I look forward to, which is that relationship between principal and teacher and the supports, and the principal saying, look, we need support because it seems like we just need direction on where we're going for PD. And I don't think that's a full-time gig for at least Marlboro to buy into. And that's all I wanted to say on that piece.
Okay, Drew, I'm gonna hit you, but just before I do, I always make sure that people who haven't got to talk yet get to talk. So Drew, after you, we're gonna go to any people that haven't spoken yet, and then we'll go for round two. So go ahead, Drew.
So I'm just curious, like what percentage of administration are we looking for? Because at this point, every time the budget comes up, we talk about cutting programs for kids. We never talk about cutting administration. The SU budget has been out of control, in my opinion, for years. It's never part of the public conversation. It's assessed back to the school districts, and those school districts have to justify these increases year over year as part of the assessment. But it seems to be completely unchecked. And we watch the superintendent's budget climb. It's, since I've been on the board, it's, at least double what it was when we started. There's more positions down there now than there ever has been before. And our kids have less opportunities. So what is the right balance? Is there a formula we're going for? Like, is it 50-50 administration to teachers? Like, where is it that, we should start thinking about putting teachers on the ground and providing programs for kids versus adding administrators that are going to make teachers better? I'm just a little frustrated with all of our dollars. Every time we add to our budget, none of it is going to direct instruction to kids. So I'd like someone to answer, what is the balance? Where is, at what percentage are high performing schools paying administration?
Thank you, Drew. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Hasn't spoken yet. Is there anybody who spoke that would like to speak again? Doug, the dog can't speak.
So far as you know.
I was gonna say, really, Rich? You sure about that?
I don't know. So are there any other comments?
Yes, Doug. It's
Go ahead,
Beth.
Beth. Go ahead.
I really truly feel for Bob and Jen. I think that obviously this has been something that they've been talking about. And I know that they have absolutely the best interest for this supervisory union going forward. I've been incredibly proud to be a part of this supervisory union. I have a sister-in-law who's a teacher up north, and she's even heard about this supervisory union and what we're doing. But I have to agree that the timing is a little tough, and that's coming off of developing our budget. And the want for us to go from a half-time administrative assistant to a full-time, but feeling like that was going to potentially cause voters to not support our budget and potentially ultimately hurt the children in our little town of Windham, which quite frankly, it's fairly amazing. If you went to our concert last night, it was absolutely tremendous. So I completely get where they're coming from, but I have to agree the timing is, it's just a little tough to do this now, February 1st. Good gosh, if you could just wait just a little bit longer. And I'm sorry, Jen and Bob, for saying that, but it's really tough being a board member because you have to weigh between you, the professionals, and what I know you see as an absolute benefit to the students, but it's also something to try and be a board member who has to support the community members, who some of them are living paycheck to paycheck and duly also want what's best for their kids. So I hope I think all of us here really want what's best, every single one of us. I just think maybe we need a little bit more time. And I hope you know that I say that with a tremendous amount of care. That's it.
Thank you, Beth. Bill Antone, Mr. Antone, you said we got somebody who's doing the minutes for us.
Yeah, they're gonna do it for the, on the video.
from the video. Okay, so I'm sorry, I thought there's somebody here. So Dan, your motion was that we move not to approve this position?
Correct.
Okay,
So a voting, so you can clarify this. I would think voting aye, yes, would mean that you agree that we not fill this position.
not fund it or fill it.
Do we all agree on that?
Yeah, so I'm I apologize if anybody wrote it down, but I have that Dan moved that we not approve this position. And I believe Doug, that's what you seconded, wherever Doug went. You guys got to stop moving on the screen, believe me, I'm getting seasick. So I believe that was a motion. Does anybody have a problem with that? Does anybody disagree with that? Okay, so the motion was that we not approve this position. It was duly made, it was seconded, we had discussion. Are you all ready to vote? Somebody shake their head if they're ready.
Yes.
Okay, Russ, thank you for the thumbs up. Okay, if you're all ready to vote, all those that are in favor of the motion, it's kind of a double negative that we not approve this position, signify so by saying aye.
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 Okay, is there anybody that disagrees and thinks and wants to have further discussion or another motion, signify so by saying nay?
Nay.
Okay, I don't believe it was a unanimous vote. It wasn't a unanimous vote, so I'm going to run through and do a roll call vote. So Bill had sent me a list of people who were the voting members, so I'm going to run through this because you guys keep moving on me. So please, when I call your name, please, unmute yourself and tell me aye or nay, okay? So, Bill Antone, can you please just record this with me too?
I'm doing it right now with you, buddy.
Okay, first one I got is Mark.
Aye.
Okay, Dwight.
Aye.
Moving on to Wyndham. Russ.
Nay.
Beth.
Aye.
Allison.
Aye.
Marlboro. Doug. I'm sorry.
Aye.
Doug is on. Dan.
Aye.
Drew. Wherever you. Oh, Drew.
Aye.
I don't believe Mike is here.
No, Mike is not here.
Okay, no Joe.
No Joe.
Al.
Aye.
No Emily.
No Emily.
Ken.
Aye.
Okay, so I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I count 9 ayes and 1 nay. Bill, is that what you got?
That's what I've got, sir.
Okay, so the motion fails. The motion carries that we not fund the position. Bill, again, I can't pull up the agenda, so I think our next thing was the equity policy.
Yep. If we pass that over to Mark, I think we're good to go. And the family engagement is not, as I put on the agenda, it's not ready. So it will not be acted upon tonight.
Okay, so Mark Schauber, you got the equity policy?
Yeah, so C29, I believe all of our districts have already approved it individually. It's direct from VSBA's recommended policy, and it does require quarterly reporting by the superintendent to the boards. The policy committee took a electronic vote to recommend to the board as a whole that we warn and approve C29 for the WCSU.
So Mark, let me just get this so I get it. Can you say that one more time for me, buddy?
The policy
Which
committee is recommending that we warn C29.
But you got to make it as a motion.
I'll let Mark do that.
So I move that we warn for adoption C29. I don't have the policy name in front of me. District Equity Policy, I believe, is the actual name of it.
I have it, Mark. It is District Equity Policy, correct?
Second.
And who seconded that, Al? Okay, so Mark moved that we warn for adoption C29 District Equity Policy. Al seconded it. Mark commented that the policy committee for the WCSU and most boards have already approved it. Is that correct, Mark?
Yeah, all boards have.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Mark, you get first to talk about it if there's anything else.
I don't have anything else. I do want to say though that policy committee, because all the the districts have approved it individually, and for timing reasons, we did take a vote via email. Bill has that as a record, and all members of the policy committee did vote yay to recommend to the board that we approve it.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Al, any other, you want to speak towards it?
No.
Anybody, any comments? Is everybody ready to vote? If you're all ready to vote, all those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed, please signify so by saying nay. It appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is a unanimous decision. So, okay, we're going to post that and then we can vote it on, it in the spring when we have our annual meeting. So, Bill, can you make sure that's for the agenda?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. I think that was it, correct?
That is correct. We have reached the end of the agenda.
Dan, did you have something else, sir?
Dan was clapping.
Oh, clapping. I'm sorry. I just saw the yellow thing. So, folks, you know, this was a really good discussion. I think we had some really good input. I think it was a very respectful discussion. I think Bob and Jen have some path to look forward to. I really appreciate everybody taking some time out to do this. Remember, tomorrow's Groundhog Day, so if you guys want, we can meet again tomorrow and say, didn't we just do that yesterday? Or we can just make a motion to adjourn and get the heck out of here.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion to adjourn by Beth, a second by Allison. Is there anybody who opposes it? You guys should have said the motion is to not adjourn. So thank you, folks. We I think, Bill, when do we meet again?
It is, I don't have it in front of me, sometime in March.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.